back with another episode of the Connected Car Cast, and we're here with Renz Kuipers and with Bret Tobey from Carvoyant. And a couple of fun things in the news once again this week. Both one on some stuff happening on the legislation front, and then also tied in a little bit to that are some recalls. Bret, I know you were having a couple of Twitter conversations with Doc Searls around his claim, his position that cars will be a crucible of data, I believe is the phrase that he used.
Yeah, it was funny. Some of the stuff that we kicked around in the early iterations, what Carvoyant was based on Doc's involvement with Blue Train Manifesto, and more recently, actually came out after we started Carvoyant, but the thinking that comes out of like Internet Identity Workshop, the VRM working groups, the Intention Economy was his book. So that piece, what he expressed there, was not a surprise to us at all, but it's really great when you see somebody like that just distinctly kind of pull a lot of that stuff together. So basically he's saying that, hey, cars are turning into a general computing platform, and Cory Doctorow made some really outstanding arguments over the last couple of years on that. So it's a great piece. We'll have a link in the show notes to it. Go out and read it. If you kind of want to understand some of the stuff that we're doing, look at the Intention Economy and put it in the context of cars. But yeah, I mean, it was good. It actually came right on the heels of a blog post we did for Your Car, Your Data, Your API.
Yeah, I saw in his post he was talking about my tires, my dashboard, my fenders, my seats.
Yeah, no, it's which we keep getting this theme here where people are asking, in our blog posts, it's kind of silly when somebody can try and assert, and some people are trying to assert ownership after there's been a physical transaction transfer ownership of something as big as a car. It's kind of hard to call a car a digital asset.
Or leave the data behind.
Yeah,
right? And there goes the physical item, but the data stays here.
Yeah, we're selling the mineral rights to to our property. It just doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I mean one of the things that he brings up is, and he does it pretty early in the piece, is where do you draw the line between what the driver controls and what the manufacturer controls?
Yeah. We say, I mean, there's a really good reason to share that information, but it always needs to be an opt-in. There always needs to have transparency, and that you have to give the driver, the owner of an object, ultimately. I mean, if you're going to try and apply these digital rules to physical assets, you at least ought to follow the same constructs. I mean, if you don't. Some people have been talking about Tesla, and I think we mentioned that in one of our last ones.
Right.
But the Tesla's sales agreement has some things in there. If you don't want a Tesla, you don't sign the sales agreement. You don't get a Tesla. If you don't click the "I accept the terms," then you don't use a piece of software. Now the challenge is with a physical asset like this, you really need to understand what that means, because it's one thing to say, I need to use this app, and they're going to track my, how many pictures I draw of circles versus squares. Who knows what it happens to be? But with a car, you do have, that's why we did the Your Car, Your Data, Your Control, because
and it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
The consumer owns that data, but they can still use that data in conjunction with the OEMs to notify issues before they become a major issue.
You can opt in just like people do for
everything else.
Apple and Google and Microsoft and Firefox, to say, hey, I'm going to share data to make the experience better. So like maybe it's recall. I mean, recalls, a ton of recalls out there right now.
I was going to say that. I was going to say that we're now in the we went through a flurry of excitement over Tesla recalls, and now a lot of the big name manufacturers are going through the exact same thing.
Well, I think I don't think they're the exact same thing.
Okay, maybe not the exact same thing.
I think the flurry over Tesla is look at the new guy has got some challenges too. In reality, I mean, you have you have to have a sense of stewardship, whether it's about the data or the hardware, whatever product you put out there, software, and making sure that you take care of people and are using that responsibly. So you get recalls are going to happen all the time. Actually, we got some other stuff this week that wasn't a recall. It was a warranty service bulletin. Like, that sounds pretty close to a recall to me. That some of that is these guys are just coming clean. Let's clear. We're taking the hit now, so let's clear the decks of everything that could possibly be there. I think that might feed into some of the GM stuff. But I think the awareness of data and taking a look at it. I mean, Toyota got their clock cleaned a few years ago, and they just came out again this year and said, or just a few days ago, and said they're pull a bunch back. They're being more responsible. But then that same thing kind of begs the question of, okay, how do these different players in the ecosystem work? Can I always trust my automaker to be the steward of my location data? I trust them to be the steward of my transmission for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big stretch for them to get into some of these newer spaces. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out because they're spending a lot of money. The traction is interesting. Yeah. We'll leave it at that. So.
Yeah, and that plays into some of the stuff we're seeing on the legislative front, I would imagine, too. Maryland, doing a lot of stuff around open data, which was a pretty big deal, and stuff happening, over in California with NHTSAs, right?
Well,
a lot of it kind of has roots back in the right to repair, which has been going on for as long as that OBD port's been there.
Yeah, we got right to repair legislation goes back well over a decade. That's where independent repair shops want to make sure they don't get blocked by the automakers. Those holy wars have been going on longer than we've been kicking this around. But you look at it. So last year, Massachusetts did some work. Yeah, they've got the FTC's done some things. National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, so that they've got jurisdiction over all this stuff. California was Senate Bill 994,
but that's more for the consumer's data.
It was consumers' data, but it's interesting how all this stuff is kind of coming together. Maryland is more about open data overall, and some of the traffic data, how to expose all that responsibly. The automakers had a really lively response to the. They called it an insurance land grab, which is kind of funny because the bill, and I think it could be tweaked to definitely be a little bit better. But the bill was basically saying that the driver's data is their data, and anybody who collects it, the driver needs to have the ability to engage that and dictate where that data gets shared to. Which obviously we've been saying that whole thing. Now the devil's in the details and the implementation. It was so the advocacy is being sponsored by AAA, Northern California, Southern California, and the automakers just went. We're actually not the automakers; they're the umbrella association.
Right.
Came out and was like, hey, there's an insurance land grab, but in California you actually can't use that data for insurance. So it's like, AAA offers insurance, but I suspect they're more interested in that dead battery on the side of the road.
It becomes a business. That's part of their business.
Yeah. No, I mean they move a lot of batteries. So who knows what the actual.
But nationally, they've been saying the same thing about that automotive data. It's the consumer's data, and then finally in California they put a legislative stamp on it versus just a moniker and PR. They're really pushing that, and it almost looks like they took a page from our strategy.
Oh yeah. Let's just say we really like their
approach,
their approach, and their logo and the verbiage they use, and we'll leave it at that for right now. But no, it's an interesting. We'll have some links in our show notes to that, but it's definitely that's the kind of thing I think we're going to see more and more until whether it's NHTSA or Congress or somebody else comes out and says, no, this is the way it goes, or until there's some crazy lawsuit where. One of the reasons most insurance companies really don't want to collect your location information because they're paranoid about liability. It seems like a lot of the automakers in their approach to telematics are taking more of a let it all land here, go elsewhere. And we take the approach of it's your data, we're a storage and engagement service, and whatever you want with it. Delete it, keep it, chuck it, share it.
Nice parallels to what's happening in the cloud as well, in the tech sector.
Well, I mean, we're a tech cloud API company who plays with cars and location data. So there's no surprise that we're thinking in terms of that. Yep. And some of the automakers do have some really powerful folks who are, we'll call them forward thinking. So that's good.
Good.
So watching all of that stuff develop over the course of just the last couple of years, I think the pace around activity and these connection points coming in, what happens when Comcast starts getting into, some of the stuff that they, are talking about the Time Warner mix.
Well, just look what they. I think I saw headlines and stories popping yesterday. I'm pretty sure it was Comcast blowing out their Wi-Fi network using home routers.
And home routers, and then there actually was some stuff that they're talking about using routers in commercial vehicles.
Yeah.
So, it's not going to be automakers versus insurance companies, and it's not going to be telcos. I mean, there are so many people who drive cars, pretty much everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that there's one constituency or distribution channel for this stuff. Actually, there is. It's drivers. Put the driver in the middle, let them make their choices, and then everything else can fall from there. That's just really Harold Ford Jr. He was at South by Southwest. They did a good panel on connected cars and privacy that he was the moderator on, and effectively putting the driver at the front side of that discussion is really the only way to engage all the different transaction parties that are out there. Well, we've seen that not everybody in the automotive space gets along.
Yeah.
They don't all like each other. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks a lot. I think this is another good car cast. Anything else happening that you've been seeing?
Well, you know what, the Heartbleed came out this week.
Yep.
Fortunately for us, we were right in the middle of migrating over to another security architecture to basically ramp up developer deployment. So we weathered that one okay, and but the overall activity around just developers and connected cars overall is picking up. We'll be at GlueCon in just over a month. So if you want to talk connected cars, we'll go ahead and promote that right now. And I think that's probably the biggest one. I don't think it's as much of a challenge necessarily for cars, but we did get a lot of questions and interest around that, like what does this affect?
And you guys got I know you guys got a lot of interest when you guys were down in Austin for South by.
Yeah, South by was
everything from the independent developers to the US DOT.
It was my beer count for South by. We were there for 6 days, and I got 5 beers in, and that's how much we were talking APIs and cars.
That's saying something.
Yeah, it was. Which in retrospect, I really wish I'd made the most South by, but in some ways, the board should be happy that we talked APIs that long. So
that's great. You guys were down there with Mashery, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's Circus Maximus, and then one of our partners, Evans.com, was showing off a prototype of some applications that they've been working on. So we got great real world validation, able to show off some things that actually, we need to grab some folks. Doc would be a good one. Let's see if we can get Doc in the discussion, but then also some of the other developers that are put their faces out here instead of just talking to us. And we'll maybe get some better backgrounds so we're a little bit more engaging. So I'd say if somebody's got ideas for what they want to hear covered, or folks that they'd like to hear talk with us or instead of us about connected cars, APIs, Internet of Things, there's some pretty good Internet of Things stuff that we ought to come back to maybe next week. But
great.
Drop us a note on the show notes that are embedded in this. We will be putting up a sign-up list. So if you want some midweek updates, go ahead and hit us there as well.
Perfect. Well, thanks a lot, guys. And if you're watching this, we will see you next week. Enjoy.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.